trade agreements. The President and I were just talking about that right before I came over here. Trade, we think it's good for America. And so I've got a lot of members who believe that international trade agreements are a winner for America.
International trade agreements are a winner for America. It just trips off the tongue. Well, there's no debating this. This is obvious. Oh, is it? That was, of course, Senator McConnell. And this is where we are right now. The Trade Promotion Authority, okay, TPP, it's called. This is what's being debated now. It sounds, well, it's great, trade, more trade, it's fantastic. Well, what does this actually mean, that the president is going to have the so-called fast-track trade negotiating authority? Before the Republicans go headlong into supporting this, and they're going to try to ram this through really fast, we have to remember what's actually happened. I look back, it's almost a year ago, a piece about what's happened since we entered the U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement, otherwise known as FTA. U.S. exports to Korea have actually declined 11%, according to government data that was recently released. So, look, these NAFTA-type deals are always sold with the promise of expanded exports, and it's going to be great for job creation in the United States. It's going to end up leveling off our trade deficit, and it's ultimately going to be great for the American worker. We're always told this. And I will tell you this, it almost never pays off for the American worker. We've seen what's happened with the exporting of jobs. We've seen what happens with the ballooning of the trade deficit, both with China and, as I said, just with Korea. And so what's really going on here, and how do we get a handle on this as Americans before this thing is ramrodded through? Joining us now, Congressman Walter Jones, Republican from the great state of North Carolina. He represents the 3rd Congressional District there, and the establishment in the GOP, the big business types, the big trade promotion authority supporters, tried to unseat Walter Jones in a primary challenge and failed, which we celebrated vigorously here on the Laura Ingraham Show. And Congressman Jones, one of the great champions of the regular people, the working people in America, joins us now. Congressman Jones, it's great to talk to you again, my friend. How are you?
Laura, I'm doing fine, and you honor me with those very kind words. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show today.
Absolutely, and I don't say those things lightly because I'm a tough cookie, but I'm fair. When you're messing up, even you, Congressman, I'll call you out for it. I told that.
I know you will,
yeah, right?
And that's fair too.
I told that to Dave Bratt. I said, Dave, we're going to be watching you like 7 on 8. We're going to be all over you. And I'm not sure where he is on this trade deal, but let's start from the beginning so our listeners really understand what's at stake here. We have Congressman Paul Ryan. Well, he gave a major speech pushing this last week, and I'm going to play a clip from it in a minute. You have John Boehner, Mitch McConnell, Jeff Flake. The list goes on and on and on. Republicans who are lining up to give Obama this so-called fast-track trade negotiating authority. It involves Asia ultimately. It involves the EU. Tell us what we need to know.
Well, Laura, first of all, if you want to sell out America, then get behind giving the president what I call the Trade Promotion Authority, better known as Fast Track. This is absolutely a threat on our Constitution, on our sovereignty. When you allow a president to have the authority to bring before Congress the issue, but not allow Congress to debate, to amend, or to change the agreement, then that in itself is not what the Constitution intended for this country. And I will tell you, one of my dearest friends in Congress, he's now out of Congress, is Ron Paul. And he wrote in his book, wrote the book in 2011 called Liberty Defined, and he just goes up and down talking about giving this kind of authority to any president. It has nothing to do with Obama, to any president. All you're doing is giving away our constitutional responsibilities. And, for me, it's just laughable, to be honest with you, Laura, that McConnell and Boehner, who constantly complain and bitch about President Obama, they want to give him this authority? Have they lost their mind? I don't know.
Well, this is the same president who negotiated the great deal of sending 5 Taliban back home for one deserter. So how would we think that he is going to have America's best interests at heart sitting down across the table from his trade representative with the Europeans or new deals with Korea or throughout Asia? By the way, people should remember, Congressman, and I know you know this, that any deals that Obama strikes under this so-called fast-track trade negotiating authority, they will long outlive his presidency. I mean, some of them might be signed in a lame duck session in 2016, right? But then they last for like 10 years. They last
Absolutely.
for 10 years. They've lapsed in years past. This whole deal started back in the Nixon administration, and then we've had ebbs and flows in support for fast-track trade negotiating authority, and this basically was on the chopping block years ago. It lapsed, and Republicans and Democrat establishment types have been trying desperately to bring this back. And people have to understand that trade might not get talked about a lot, Congressman, and we certainly don't debate it enough at these presidential debates, but this affects everything we do. It affects our wages, our job opportunities, small businesses in this country. And it's mind-boggling that the Republicans, who, as you said, don't trust the president on pretty much anything, will trust him with one of the most important things affecting Americans today, which is our trade with other countries. Even if you thought this thing was a good idea, why not wait until perhaps a Republican is in office to do these negotiations? At least you could perhaps trust him a little bit more, or her a little bit more. But giving it to Obama makes no sense at all. But you can react to that.
Well, Laura, your points are well made, and that's the whole issue of this. I think it's all about money from special interests, quite frankly. I complain constantly about this Congress is becoming more and more a Congress of special interests and not a Congress of the people. And that's the point you've made. I paraphrased probably badly, but that's exactly what is happening. I see it every day up here, no matter what the issue might be. But when you're talking about trade, and if this TPP, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, if that should become the law of the land, then we're talking about trading with Vietnam, who pays their workers 50 cents per hour. This is why we do not. The first bill that will come up is this fast track, the Trade Promotion Authority for the President.
For the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership.
That will come second. Mm-hmm. And this would come up by itself, the Trade Promotion Authority, and that in itself is a threat to the sovereignty of this great nation that has been threatened so many times and damaged so many times. I hope your listeners will pick up the phone, call their member of Congress, and say, join those Republicans and Democrats, Laura, who don't want President Obama to have this authority, because it is an issue of our Constitution and the sovereignty of our nation.
And the champion of TPP, to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and fast-track authority to the president, one of them is Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan, who I like personally very much. I see him, and he thinks I don't like him, but I do like him as a person. I think he's a wonderful dad, and I think he means well. But Paul Ryan gives a speech last week pushing trade, without any real reference to the trade imbalance, $317 billion trade deficit with China. But he's arguing, and I'd like your response to this, he's arguing that the Trade Promotion Authority and these new trade agreements will ultimately redound to our benefit, Congressman Jones, because they will establish new and enforceable global trade rules that will help us against other countries gaming the system.
What a trade agreement does is it levels the playing field. Our economy is already one of the most open in the world. So trade agreements make other countries take down barriers to our exports, tariffs, quotas, red tape. What a trade agreement basically says is, you've got what I want, and I've got what you want. So let's work something out. Let's set up rules so it's easier to trade. That way we will both be better off.
And what's wrong with that, Congressman? There'll all be these rules, and communist countries like Vietnam and China, and they'll definitely abide by those rules, right?
Well, Laura, it's idealistic, and you're exactly right. We cannot enforce these rules in other countries. They end up going to some type of review court to say, well, this country is saying we did this and we didn't do that, and it's tied up for weeks and months and years. That's why this country has continued, I think it's money behind all this. I really do. I think it's a sellout of the American worker. It's the sellout of our sovereignty, and it is absolutely wrong. If I can share one comment from a liberal, and the liberal is the former Clinton Labor Secretary,
Robert Reich,
and a NAFTA booster, Robert Reich, is calling for fast track and the TPP, which he calls a corporate Trojan horse to be defeated.
I agree with him.
And that is, and I do too. And Laura, that's the reason I wanted to quote him. This thing is dangerous to our country, and the people who listen to your show, and you have millions of them, need to look into this issue and also to call their member of Congress and tell them how they feel about this. This is just like Ross Perot said when during the presidential debate, you hear that sucking noise? That's jobs going down to Mexico.
Well, just a rudimentary review of recent trade deals demonstrate what a raw deal the American worker and the American people got. Our trading with China, we have gone completely sold out as they harass and squeeze American corporations there in ways that we've documented numerous times on this show. Obviously, the NAFTA's already been exploded. And we see what's happened with the the Korean trade agreement that Obama negotiated. It just has increased our trade deficit year to year. I believe it's up 12% a year, 12 or 17% a year. So we already know those trade agreements have been big flops for the American people. And now, as we see the Republicans in Congress working with certain big interests in the Democrat Party, pushing for the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Fast-Track Trade Authority for Obama, they claim, Congressman, that under the new Trade Promotion Authority, Congress will get all of these consultation rights, expanded consultation. But when you look at the language, it doesn't really mean anything. So Congress can see the text of what the president is negotiating, and they must meet and consult with any interested member at any time. Again, is this really a big deal? Does this give you guys any real authority? No. It just expands the scope of consulting requirements. But how much good does it do to consult with Obama? It doesn't. We consulted with Obama with Obamacare. That made no difference. We consulted with Obama on immigration, and he's absolutely hell-bent on this pushing through this executive order and administering it. So you can consult with Obama all you want, Congress, but that's not going to change what happens in these trade deals. You can close out for us, Congressman.
Well, Laura, listen, thank you so much for what you have said about this. I hope what little bit I might have added to your show that the American people will become enraged by what is about to happen. We must stop the Trade Promotion Authority for the president first. Let's stop that, and then that will help us hold down Trans-Pacific Partnerships, TPP, because this, quite frankly, is another assault on what we love about America, and that is America has opportunities for the American people. We continue to let the big businesses just push out the average person who wants to have a good middle-class life.
Congressman Jones, just in closing, why is Paul Ryan doing this?
I can't answer for Paul Ryan. All I know that obviously he's a very bright young man. Like you said yourself, I have a lot of respect for him, but I just think he's terribly wrong on this issue. I think this is the interest of special interests driving Congress instead of the people driving Congress. That's the problem.
Congressman Walter Jones, and he is working with Democrats to try to stop this and other Republicans. This is where we should have a bipartisan wall built against this unbridled use of executive authority on trade deals. I'll work with any Democrat who wants to oppose this. Absolutely. That's bipartisan. Obama wants bipartisan cooperation. We can cooperate together with people like Howard Dean and Robert Reich and Bernie Sanders and anyone else, Elizabeth Warren, to stop this madness, because it has to be stopped. 855-40-LAURA. Congressman, thank you so much. When we come back, Rosie is out at The View. You won't believe what she calls herself.